In today's video, we're talking about how Steam Deck emulation just got a huge upgrade, which route you should take when it comes to emulation, and finally why this kind of makes Steam Deck the ultimate gaming machine. And then for the quick news story to round out the video, I gotta tell you guys about Super Woden Rally Edge. It is amazing. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. We're starting off the video with a massive thank you to you guys. Take a second, wherever you are, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're on the bus, give yourself a huge pat on the back because you helped me get to 100,000 subscribers. I never thought this channel would reach that because I just started it as something fun to be a commentary channel on everything that's happening in the world of the Steam Deck. And now, almost 4 years later, I'm at the point where I'm talking about tons of different hardware. I'm talking about Steam itself. And thank you so much for watching these videos. It's like the best thing that's ever happened to me since I started YouTube. And it's 100% thanks to you. I really appreciate it. And yes, before you ask, I am keeping my promise. You will see the Dodge Viper video here on the channel. I just gotta wait till spring now because it's in storage and I'm not taking it anywhere near salt. And let's be real, that car is dangerous as hell. It has 450 horsepower going to the back wheels. It doesn't have ABS and it doesn't have traction control. You do not want me driving that thing when it's winter. So stay subscribed, keep clicking on the videos, and that will happen, I promise. But with the intro out of the way, let's get into the big main topic of today's video, which is a huge upgrade for emulation on the Steam Deck, which route for emulation you should pick when it comes to the Steam Deck, and how this just confirms that the Steam Deck is the ultimate gaming machine. And these upgrades will extend to the Steam machine for sure, and I'm gonna assume they'll extend to the Steam frame. I just don't know how ARM chips are gonna play with EmuDeck and RetroDeck on that headset, so we'll just have to wait and see, but I'm assuming it'll work. So when it comes to emulating on the Steam Deck, you've got two great choices as to how to set it up on your device. The first one is EmuDeck, which I'll talk about a little bit later when I compare these two options. And the second one is RetroDeck, which a lot of people really enjoy using. And RetroDeck just got a massive upgrade that adds in a ton of stuff. It's the version number 0.10.0b. So the first thing worth focusing on is the fact that it added in a bunch of new emulators. There's one for Streets of Rage specifically, I think, but the two that really stood out to me are, first of all, Azahar, which is a newer 3DS emulator that I really like. When it comes to emulating 3DS on the Steam Deck, I've tended to stay away from it because it just never really worked all that well. You'd see performance issues, you'd see frame drops, you'd see audio stuttering, just weird issues that made it not feel like a premium experience. And I have a 3DS XL laying around that's hacked, so like I would usually default to that. Azahar fixed all of that, so it's really nice to see RetroDeck catching up to EmuDeck and getting support for this emulator. And then the second emulator they added is Ryujinx for Nintendo Switch support. I'm pretty sure they have another Switch emulator, whether it's Yuzu or one of the other ones, but those are harder to come by and a lot of them don't receive updates anymore. But the biggest thing coming along with this update is essentially an entire rewrite of the application that'll make it just run a lot smoother, and all the emulators have been kind of separated out from each other. So if you make a big change in one, it's not going to affect every other emulator. You can now get pretty granular with it, and that's a big deal because it's just annoying if you make a change in one that benefits one emulator, but then it kind of expands out to all the other emulators, and it might break features in another emulator you want to run, and then you'll have to change it when you're using that one, switch it back when you're using the other one. It just creates confusion, annoyance, and frustration. So to see them put in the work to rewrite the entire app to make sure it doesn't work that way anymore is a cool level of support, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, I know it's freeware, but like I'm pretty sure they just do it for fun or off donation. So to see someone who's in it for the love of the game like this actually put in this level of work is kind of astounding. And another huge upgrade that comes from them rewriting the entire app is that it'll make it way easier and faster for them to update the app. So if something breaks, they can just fix that instead of fixing it and then doing a whole round of testing on every other emulator to see if fixing that one issue in one emulator broke another, right? Like they can just update the emulator, get the update out there as a hotfix, and it'll happen a lot faster, which kind of puts them a little bit closer to EmuDeck, because EmuDeck updates frequently, like all the time. You're getting small boutique EmuDeck updates, and I have RetroDeck set up, but it gets updates a lot less frequently, so that should be resolved now. So overall, RetroDeck just got a massive upgrade that puts it exactly pretty much on par with EmuDeck from a usability standpoint, and I really appreciate that work. And I know a lot of you who just got Steam Decks over Christmas are dipping your toes for the first time into the emulation scene, so I wanted to add in a little segment to kind of tell you which one I think is worth picking, because they're both really good options. The difference between RetroDeck and EmuDeck is really easy to explain. RetroDeck is essentially one app you download from the Discover Store, and it's a huge download because it comes with a billion emulators and gets all the files in place and the controller setups and everything you need to just get it running right out of the jump. So it adds itself to Steam when you set it up. You launch that app, and then inside of it, every console that you have set up with games will have its own folder. So you go into that console, then you see the games all lined up. It of course can scrape art and everything like that. So you launch it from Steam as a dedicated app, whereas EmuDeck is a little bit different. It still installs all the different emulators, but you've got to download it from emudeck.com. It's not more difficult to set up than RetroDeck. It's just a little bit different. It installs the different flat packs of the different emulators separately, like outside of its own app. And once it's all set up, you got to do the same thing, like drag your ROMs to the right folders, drag the BIOS to the right folders. But once that's complete, it also comes with an app called Steam ROM Manager. And when you open that, it quits Steam, and then it scrapes your ROM folders and adds all those games individually to Steam. It'll group them under non-Steam games into their own folders based on their console. So what you got to pick is whether you want it all contained in one app or you want those individual games in the game mode library. Because if you have one way or the other that you prefer, that kind of answers the question of which app you should use. But as far as like usability, performance, and everything else go, I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. I have them both set up because they can pull from the same ROM folder, so it's not really that big of a deal. I will say, me personally, I default to EmuDeck. I pay for their Patreon so I can get save uploading and downloading across all my different devices. And the cool thing about that is if you pay for the Patreon, you also get EmuDeck for Windows. So on my Windows PC, I have EmuDeck set up with all my ROMs. On my SteamOS PC, I have the same situation. On my Steam Deck, I have the same situation. On my Legion OS, same deal. And when I'm done playing a game, I go to the desktop mode, it uploads those saves to the cloud. If you like using Decky Loader, you can get a plugin that'll automatically scrape those saves, upload them to the cloud, and then automatically download them on your other devices. So that's all through the Patreon, but if you don't need those save transferring features because you're not a psycho like me who has a bunch of different PCs and handhelds, it's really simple to set up. RetroDeck is pretty much the same deal, so you just got to pick whether you want them all contained in an app or you want them in your Steam game mode library. So that's up to you. And when it comes to emulation on the Steam Deck, a lot of people use it as sort of a crutch, as a value proposition. They're like, yeah, the Steam Deck can't run newer games like, you know, Silent Hill F or Metal Gear Solid Delta, but it gives me infinite access to a library of retro games. And that's cool, right? Like I usually play emulated games in between bigger games. Like I just finished Dying Light the Beast. So when I finish a huge game like that, like a AAA 40 or 50 hour experience, that's when I go back to emulate games or I play indie games while I wait and recharge for my next big AAA game that I might be playing for a month or so at a time. But I never want to fall in that trap that people seem to fall into where they just reject every new game that comes out. I like playing new games. I think a lot of them are pretty good. I think with most games that come out these days, you're only benefited by waiting a couple months after they come out for some patches, for some DLC, because then you'll get a cheaper price than a finished product. But the overall quality of the finished product, I think, is generally pretty good a lot of the time. It's not like I'm a full rejecter of modern games. And if you get stuck in that trap of really only playing old games, it makes it kind of hard to talk to other people about playing video games, because even if you're excited about exclusively retro games, most people generally keep one or two newer games in the rotation. So you want to make sure you always have one or two of them floating around in yours as well. But on the other hand, the emulation factor, in addition to some other factors I'll talk about in a second, really do make the Steam Deck the ultimate gaming machine. One example I have recently has to do with Resident Evil. You guys know that's like my all-time favorite franchise. So leading up to Resident Evil Requiem, knowing that the new main character, Grace Ashcroft, is the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft, I've never played Resident Evil Outbreak 1 and 2. So leading up to Resident Evil Requiem, I want to get all of the back canon games out of the way so I'm fresh on the story. So with the Steam Deck, I can download Resident Evil Outbreak files 1 and 2, install them super easily through EmuDeck or RetroDeck, play through those. And when it comes to Leon, the Steam Deck is the ultimate machine, because if I want to play the classic Resident Evil 2, I can emulate it, of course, or I can go to GOG and buy the classic PC port that they added to that store. If I want to play Resident Evil 4, the original version of RE4 runs great on the Steam Deck, or I can play the Resident Evil 4 remake, which also runs pretty dang good, except for when you're looking down a scope, it halves the FPS because it renders the whole world twice, which is a huge bummer. Then I can move on to Resident Evil 6 and play through Leon's campaign, and then going back to Resident Evil 2, I can also play the Resident Evil 2 remake on the Steam Deck, and it runs flawlessly. So I can play every game that's required in the Resident Evil canon to catch up for Resident Evil Requiem. Requiem, and seeing how well that game runs on the Switch 2, I don't think we're going to have any issues running Resident Evil Requiem on the Steam Deck. So through emulation, through apps like GOG working fine, through Steam, through every avenue you have to play games on the Steam Deck, you really just need a Steam Deck to play basically any game you want. And it's really beneficial to someone like me who sees games through a lens of both entertainment and art. Like sometimes I want to go back and play the classic Resident Evil games to get familiar with where that franchise started and how it got to my entry point, which was Resident Evil 4. But sometimes I just want to play a new game with all of those modern conveniences like accessibility features and, generally speaking, easier gameplay in mind. And if I have a Steam Deck and in the near future a Steam Machine and or Steam Frame, I mean, those devices all make it dead simple to just get in the game and play what I want to play. And I know when it comes to a console, you're not totally out of luck, but you definitely can't play Resident Evil Outbreak on the PS5. And if you want to play the classic versions of Resident Evil 2, I mean, you're kind of getting an inferior product, if we're being real, compared to the port that you get through GOG. Like, it's a really good PC version of that classic game, and it looks great on the Steam Deck OLED screen. I don't think I'd want to play the original Resident Evil 2 being emulated on PS1 on my PS5. It just is not a good experience. And I think it's really cool that on PC you buy these games once, right? Like, you buy Resident Evil 2 on GOG, you have it forever. You get it DRM free, so you can just download it and install it on your Steam Deck and be good to go. If you buy a game from Steam on your Steam Deck, you can play it on any PC you want. Whereas with these classic games on PlayStation, you have to have a PlayStation device, and sometimes you have to rebuy the game. Like, if you bought Resident Evil 2 on PS1, you got to rebuy it digitally on the PlayStation Store. You can't just put the disc in and have it activate on your account. So yeah, quick recap, RetroDeck is awesome and is only getting better. EmuDeck has been awesome and is still awesome, and the Steam Deck, thanks to emulation and the fact that it can use basically any storefront you want, is the ultimate gaming machine, and I really appreciate it for that. And before I go, let's do the quick ending segment, which is about a brand new game that runs incredibly on the Steam Deck that I've been looking forward to for a long time, Super Woden Rally Edge. So if you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you've definitely seen me recommend Super Woden GP2. It's a top-down isometric racer game that's very heavily inspired by Gran Turismo 4, which, if we're being real from a single player perspective, is the all-time great of the Gran Turismo franchise. So that game has been a game that I always go back to on the Steam Deck, even though I've sunk hundreds of hours into it. It's so good. And just like Super Woden GP2, Super Woden Rally Edge really shakes things up by being a big technological leap over the last game. The camera is a 50-50 split between top down and behind the car because it's rally, so you're going really fast and then a turn will come up. You have to pay attention to the callouts from your co-driver to know how to prepare for that next turn, whether it's a hairpin, whether it's an easy left, who knows? You got to listen to the co-driver next to you because with that new camera angle, you can only see so far in front of you on the road. The physics are absolutely incredible. I'm really impressed with all the cars and how they perform differently depending on their stats. I like the overall progression of the campaign, which is thankfully still very similar to Gran Turismo 4. It's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it is definitely the strategy that was applied here with this game. And like I mentioned, it runs incredibly well on the Steam Deck OLED. It stays at 90 FPS 99% of the time, but if you want it to stay locked, just drop it to 60 FPS, 60 Hertz, and you're good to go. The music is phenomenal. It gets your heart racing. It's just a really cool 90s vision for music in a game that I think is awesome. And I think the price will make a lot of you cheapskates out there happy. It's only $12.99 normal price, but it's on sale for launch for $9.09. If you want a game that feels like it's made for Steam Deck, just like I always said Super Woden GP2 was, you cannot go wrong with Super Woden Rally Edge. So yeah, I know a few of you have been playing this game because one of you chastised me for only playing 30 minutes. Sleep mode exists on the Steam Deck and it doesn't update playtime until you quit the game. I play while I export videos that I'm about to edit, so I was playing it in short bursts. I think I have about 6 hours in this game already. And check the leaderboards because Random Hero 1270 is climbing up the ranks pretty damn quick. Anyway guys, thank you so much again for 100,000 subscribers, but that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.